Exclusive from Reuters. U.S. could cut Ukraine's access to Starlink internet services over minerals, sources say. JD Vance was right. JD Vance was right. Not recently, a long time ago. But I think he needed to expand it. Remember when JD Vance, back in the day, when JD Vance was not a venture capitalist, Trump sycophant to get the position of VP after getting his endorsement for Ohio Senate, he actually was an anti-Trump guy. And during that period, he once described Trump as heroin in the way that it infects the United States and it hurts the United States. But I think if we did a little alteration on this, and we said that Elon Musk gave Ukraine heroin, I think this would be a much more accurate statement. Even though, I mean, that one's not too inaccurate either, but I think this would be much more accurate because in this way, Starlink is useful for frontline units. I did a documentary on this a while ago. And you want to know what the title of my documentary was? It was a warning about this exact scenario. It was Elon Musk. 1 second. Elon Musk, Dylan Burns TV. I remember it was Ukraine bets it all on Elon Musk. And my point was with that documentary was that can we really trust Elon Musk given his record on the issue and with services being cut during the stages of the war, like during certain offensives or attacks on Crimea, for them to not use this as leverage in the future, risking it all on Elon Musk. That was my title because I said it was a risk, because the risk was that once Ukraine does something that he doesn't like, or that the government doesn't like, for example, if Trump was to get in there, then they could just cut off the Starlink services. And what Starlink does is it means that any frontline unit, all they need is they need to put a little dish, aim it towards the sky, and if they have a connection to the sky, they can get to the internet, and then they can communicate with their commanders, and they can look at drone feeds, and they can operate on the front. Now, Elon did end up signing a DoD contract to provide Ukraine with these services, and that was one of the things I said in the documentary that would probably need to be done to stop Elon Musk from, violating the deal and cutting services without, the government's say, because he wanted to, be some weird peacemaker. Problem is now the government's changed. So the people that would enforce violations of DoD contracts or something like that is Trump's, DOJ, the same one that's giving him crazy access. So the government also itself could decide to tell him to cut it off to increase the pressure. Now, if they were to lose Starlink access all along the front line, what this would end up doing is cutting off the communication for frontline units to their command. It would cut off their view of drones. It would cut off their access to the internet and any resources they would need to get from the internet for their work and stuff. For example, if they wanted to keep up informed from other units and get information about what's happening in Kiev, it'd be more difficult for that. It'd be harder for them to communicate with their families and the tiny little personal things. I mean, it would make it a lot more difficult. Now, there is other ways for Ukraine to communicate with command, but if they were to just pull the plug with no transition period in order to up the pressure, it would probably get some people killed. It would worsen communications. It'd cause some chaos as the Ukrainians scrambled to find an alternative. And there is a chance that the Russians would take the opportunity to attack, try to do as much damage to Ukrainian defenders as possible, and advance forward. They would wait for the Starlink to be plugged, the plug to be pulled, for communications to be down, and then attack. In fact, it was the Ukraine, when they invaded Kursk, part of the reason it was successful was because the Ukrainians were able to jam Russian communication systems on the other side, making it more difficult for them to call for support and for Russian command to know what's going on. And part of the early statements from Russian command of oh, we're going to push the Ukrainians over the border. It's going to be over. It's going to be great. I think a lot of it, of course, is the normal chest beating, but some of it might have been that they really didn't know how bad it was. And so that breakdown of communication could have a devastating impact. And it could, make it more difficult to respond and plug a hole if the Russians were to, say, build up an offensive capacity and then try to bust through a hole after communications break down, like what happened with Orachina. Basically, if they were to do this, especially if they were to do it without warning as part of a negotiating tactic, that would be like getting them addicted to a system so that they are reliant on it. And then once they're reliant on it, reminding them in every instance, like, you're dependent on us. You gotta, now that you're addicted to our Starlink, you gotta give us your minerals. You gotta give us your ports. You gotta give us your critical infrastructure. You gotta give us exclusive trading rights. You gotta give us, all these concessions to the Russians. If you want to keep getting aid, okay, you're willing to stop with our aid? Okay, fine. Okay, well, it's not just aid. We'll get some people killed right now. That's evil. That's not just wrong. That's fucking evil. That's murder. That's murder of our allies. If they do this, that's what it is. It is murder on behalf of negotiation. It is, we will kill your troops. We will help do that. Make it easier for the Russians to do that. At no really gain for us outside of, we have more leverage over you. It's a display of dominance. And Elon Musk was willing to do it. Do you think Trump is? He was willing to withhold aid during the critical battle of Avdiivka and stand with the Republican Party, make them do that. So I am of no delusions when I say that I think they would be willing to not only stop the flow of aid as 3.8 billion just sits there, but also cut off the communications without warning, getting people killed. When I say that Trump is negotiating against the Ukrainian position, this is what I mean. They're negotiating against the Ukrainians. They're booing the Russian position. We're getting damn near the worst case scenario when it comes to Trump. And of course, when I say damn near, maybe I'm saying like 50% of the way there. I don't know, but it's enough that we're well into code orange. This is the collapse of America. Okay, calm down. I don't want to fearmonger, but my point is, like, we're getting all the wrong signs for cut aid, pull the plug, or force Ukrainians into a deal that'll lead to a war down the road or won't lead to a just outcome. Putin is balls deep in Mr. Krasnov. Oh boy.